supporting Adolf Hitler. President Bush's father, the senior, Prescott Bush, was indicted by the FBI for financing the Nazis before and during. This never came out in any of the elections. When we look at the rise of tyranny in Germany, Italy, and the Soviet Union and China, there are a few things that get repeated. First, invoke a terrifying external enemy. Create a thug caste. Set up an internal surveillance system. Harass the citizens groups. Engage in arbitrary detention and release. Target key individuals. Control the press. Dissent equals treason is what gets taught by the government. Disarm the population. Militarization. Institute torture and elimination of free speech. If you look at Bill C-51, it covers a lot of those. It gets it going in the right direction for tyranny. I pay taxes, I pay taxes, I pay taxes, you pay taxes. Let's talk about what some of those tax dollars do. At the moment in the audience are people taking pictures, some of them for themselves. But you can be sure that some of those people taking pictures are paid for by your tax dollars. They will go back to their office. They're going to take your picture and put it in a system, and it's going to follow in your files for the rest of your life. I was watching a CIA talk about his career, his agent talking about his career. He said that his first mandate was at McGill University to spy on student unions and their organizations and report back to Washington. This man looked at his career and second-guessed it when he was in Cuba on mission, and he had to put lime in children's milk. The idea is make the Cuban children sick to fill up the hospitals so that there would be pressure on Castro to overthrow. My nephew went to a demonstration against the G8 in Montebello. There are citizens that were exercising their rights, and the police, dressed up as hooligans, began inciting violence against their fellow police officers to give a reason to attack the population. ESQ denied it at first, and then they turned around later on and they admitted to having done that. This was illegal. Their acts were illegal, and nobody was ever prosecuted. At the end of the Cold War, CSIS was looking for a new role in the world, and they found it by financing white supremacist groups. They did it for 4 years, and they were caught doing it. It's important to understand that when we create government organizations, they look for a purpose to continue to exist, and they continue taking funds thereafter in the search for purpose. So Bill C-51 proposes putting more power in the hands of these people that have committed these acts. It doesn't make much sense, does it? An Angus Reid poll shows that Canadians distrust politicians and is the most distrusted profession in Canada, and the rule proposes to give them more power and more control over your lives. History shows that if you give government an inch, they will take a yard.
Only a yard?
A mile.
That's better, yeah.
The CSIS building, or the SEC building, which is our equivalent to the NSA, costs $1.2 billion. I don't remember voting on that. They'll have 2,000 employees to operate it. I guess when Washington told Harper to build an NSA equivalent, he didn't realize he didn't have the illegal right to operate it. Where do you think the SEC got their technology and the equipment they'll be using in that building? Edward Snowden's documents show that Canada has already been involved in illegal spying. This is just going to amp it up even further. In business, when we have problems, we have issues, we prioritize them. At globalresearch.ca, you can find a paper published by risk assessment professionals, and they put the risk at a terrorist incident affecting your life at 1 in 3.8 million. In business, if you start investing dollars in that one, you probably get fired. In the United States, where the advancement of the police state is about 10 years ahead of us, you are 9 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than a terrorist. Our police budgets are swelling with new militarized toys. In my town of St. Sever, the largest expenditure is on security. When I was a kid, we had a police sheriff, we all knew his name, and we had a blast. Governments in the West have admitted to 49 acts of false flag terrorism, where they have attacked their own population. Once again, this is who we're going to give more